Hey everyone, welcome back to How to Be a Poser. Today we're going to show you the way to pose this figure, the Hot Toys Mandalorian and the Child Deluxe 6-Scale Collectibles Set. Let's get started. All right, here's the Mandalorian and Grogu ×2, still in their box, exactly the way they're going to come to you. So look at all this stuff, Beskar upon Beskar upon Beskar. We got weapons, we got whistling birds, we got fire, we got jet blasts, we got a Cantona. So much cool stuff to play with here. Can't wait to see what I can do with it all, so let's get rolling. All right, here's Mando, and he's looking cool. I just noticed that when I get him on the table, and get them in proper lighting, that paint really starts to properly gleam. And I really appreciate that because, well, you know, photographer. But before we get busy on the actual posing of the figure, there's a fair amount of prep work that I want to do involved with dressing. And now for what I'm doing here, yeah, I think I'm gonna have him using that blaster pistol. So we're gonna be using that, but I'm not gonna have him in his chain code thing in his hand. So I'm just gonna do what he's supposed to do with that, and that's to shove it down in this belt back behind here. So that's how he keeps that nice and safely tucked away. The real challenge is to get this tiny little mine. But what you're gonna wanna do with this, carefully take it and at an angle, slide it into this little cup provided. You can see that there are two others that are in there and they're permanently affixed. And slide it down in a way that allows you to feed the largest circumference circle into it first. I think that I'm gonna have him flying. So I'm gonna need a jetpack. And you can see that I've actually got all the stuff that I really think that I'm gonna need for this pose. I'm gonna do right over here already. So I'm gonna need the jetpack, I'm gonna need the flight stand. Quick assembly of that, I've already put this part on there. So I'm just gonna drop that down there into its keyhole really quick. This is a supplemental stand. This rock is a supplemental stand for Grogu. So you can actually have it exist as it is, as a base. But if you want to use the pram and have it hovering, then you take this little rock off of it, just like so. And then you introduce this little stand here, this little tiny piece of acrylic will slide down into that keyhole. And then Grogu's pram will just hang out right here. And that's kind of a really cool way to do it. But I'm not gonna use that today. I'm actually gonna use this full figure of Grogu that I just knocked over. He's falling down all the time anyway. He won't take it personally. Again, I'm gonna have him with a pistol in his hand because I think I want him blasting off and then shooting down at somebody who's still at ground level as he's taking off. So let's go ahead and give him a trigger finger, a gun hand, whatever you'd like to call that. Okay, and I'm just gonna go ahead and put his pistol into the hand before I actually put the hand onto the figure. And then you get the hand on there just nice and tight. You'll feel a little bit of a pop. Now again, I bring this up with every figure that features van braces, but because they're loose, what you want to do anytime that you're posing is make sure that the top of the van brace is lined up with the top of the figure's hand. So anytime that I make a motion like this, I need to follow up by doing that just to make sure that everything stays in alignment. So the hand that he comes with initially, which is the relaxed hand, is going to be the hand that he's holding Grogu with. Now, because I don't anticipate that he'll be holding Grogu tightly in that hand, there's going to be collisions between the harder elements of the body and the hard elements that are Grogu. Because he's all just one piece of solid plastic, I'm going to wait until the end to put Grogu into Mando's arms. Now, let's go ahead and start this pose. So there's going to be a fair amount of torso twisting in this, and in this case I think I'm going to have him twisting to his left, camera right, and then we're going to turn him this way. Let's get that arm up so that he's blasting. As with all things posing, you rough it out and then you finesse it once you think you've got it close to where it needs to be. I'm gonna go ahead and bend this leg up a little bit and cock that knee. So we break the lines. You don't wanna have everything being flat. It just kind of looks, I don't know, Superman-ish, but even Superman doesn't really fly like that. And when you're talking about jetpacks, standard superhero flight pose rules don't necessarily apply. And then we're gonna need this arm up here because he's gonna be cradling Grogu. So we want to get that just a little bit bent in and kind of rough that out so that when I actually start putting him in place, then he'll be where he needs to be. I'm trying to decide which side I want to have his cape on. So I think it's going to fly over here. I think I've seen him do it both ways, but if I'm wrong, go ahead and let me know in the comments. My shoulders are broad. Now what I did wrong there is I put that thing on there without adding the jet blasts first. So I'm going to lay Mando down And I'm gonna go ahead and put these blasting effects, these jet effects, onto the jetpack, the Rising Phoenix, if you will. And once that's done, now we're talking. Yeah. Now you want to make sure that that just stays tucked away and hangs beneath, not like directly beneath the jet blasts, but in such a way that they're not in contact with it. Now that I've got that on there, I can just go ahead and get him, let's see. We've got to get this thing around his waist somehow, and it's a pretty big waist with all that hardware on there, so we really need to take that clamp and spread it wide. In fact, it might be better to take this off now while you do that, and go ahead and get that thing around his waist. And let's take it over the top of the holster too, because I don't want that holster flapping in the breeze. And then reapply the jetpack. Okay, so he's gonna be blasting off like this, but I don't like how far forward he's leaning. For two reasons I don't like how that's leaning forward. I'm gonna turn to the side for the camera here, and you can see how he's just way out front on that. That means that any slight little bit of jostling might be enough to tip that forward and over. So we're gonna recenter Mando over the middle of that stand by bending it back right here, and then bending it forward again. And that, oh, that's a much more stable center of gravity right there. Okay, cool. Mando's cuirass on his Beskar armor isn't always level in the show. It kind of moves around with the costume. It's affixed to the costume. And when he's moving around, sometimes that cuirass can move around as well. So if that happens, then, you know, don't worry about it. It's perfectly natural. I kind of want him blasting away from whoever he's blasting. So let's go ahead and turn this like that. Cool. And let's take Grogu. Oh, wait, one last thing I forgot to do. He's got the Rising Phoenix, so he absolutely has to have his Mudhorn signet on his armor. Yeah, because he didn't get the one until he got the other. So there you go. That's a bit of continuity that you want to pay attention to. I mean, I'm always a big fan of telling your own story and telling it in your own way, but you also kind of want to make sure that you stay a little bit close to where the character is. And by the way, I did actually forget that you need to have this dagger shoved down into his boot. I did that before we actually went live. All right, last bit. Let's get some Grogu action going on here. I'm gonna tuck the little guy down there. It looks like it's a little bit, slide him in there, a little bit tight for my taste. So I'm gonna rotate that hand just a touch. Now what you can do as you do this is see how Grogu has this little hand up like this? I think a good thing to do is to just kind of tilt him down in a way that he's kind of hanging on to Mando's vambrace. And then at the same time, try to get the fingers of Mando's hand underneath that little lip of his sleeve. Because if you can do that, then what you've created there is a little place for the figure to support itself as it's being cradled by Din Djarin. Now let's turn Grogu's head a little bit so that he's kind of looking a little bit front. We don't want to go all the way to the right, to his right, because that's just a little bit unnatural. Now coming around here, okay, I have a real problem with that. His back isn't all the way to the Mandalorian's Beskar. So let's go ahead and make some adjustments to that arm. I'm gonna raise it up, and then I'm gonna tilt it in just a little bit. And hopefully that'll create enough space there. Yeah, that's already better, see? There we go. I kind of like the way that it was before because he was holding Grogu back more this way like he was being protective. But again, that left too much of Grogu's back exposed from the front. And I kind of didn't want to do that. So I'm just going to just keep futzing with this until you get it right. And one thing you can do, of course, is take that wrist peg and position it properly. Speaking of positioning things properly, let's rotate that vambrace so that it's parallel to the hand as we talked about before. And there we go! His fingers are hooked nicely under Grogu's sleeve, and Grogu's hand is resting right there on top of him. Let's go ahead and tilt this back again, this way. I'm just gonna make sure that the screw is tight on this stand. And it wasn't. So that's crucial. When you're having a flight pose like this, and it becomes more crucial the heavier the figure becomes. But you don't want to leave that loose at all, otherwise the weight of the figure might actually cause that to twist. And I think that happened to me earlier, and that might be why I lost a little bit of the positioning that I already had set up. So I'm just going to go ahead and lean him, have him flying backwards a little bit more. There we go. And point that pistol, oh, almost lost my Rising Phoenix. Yeah, be careful where you put your hands when you're maneuvering this, especially when we're talking about accessories that aren't permanently affixed, attached, say, by magnets. And again, I want his head coming forward and down, and let's have him aiming further at the ground. Now I'm trying to imagine he's not this low to the ground. I'm trying to imagine that he's got a little bit more altitude. I don't have him quite aiming down his sight line, but having a helmet on makes it a little bit more forgiving when you're having a character aim down the sight. Not completely, but close enough. And I like that. I like that a lot. I might tweak it a little bit before we get it onto the table, but in all reality, that's my first pose, and I dig it. Watching the evolution of Din Djarin's armor has been like watching someone live out a role-playing game. Every time he completes a new adventure, he returns to the armorer and levels up and receives an upgrade. If that pattern continues, we can look forward to many more excellent figures like this one, with different modifications in armor and probably new weapons. I can't wait.
Did you enjoy that video? Be sure to subscribe by hitting the S icon on your screen and click the bell icon to be notified whenever a new video is posted. If you'd like more info on the items featured in this video, click the link provided under product info. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to let your geek side show.